Hi, great to see you. I have been working so hard all day long on 2026 and what we're going to be doing with Doc Pratt Ministries and all that great stuff, and how I'm going to be fitting it in between the PhD studying and life and keeping up with the grandkids and the family and all of that kind of thing. Anyhow, I just wanted to give you a little bit of encouragement today to take the time to think about yourself. And it seems like quite the well, to use a buzzword nowadays, a narcissistic thing to do. It's not narcissistic. It's important. And let's talk about why. So, I'm Coach Amy, and as I said, I run Doc Pratt Ministries, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that is working toward building community and pursuing excellence in all the six dimensions of life. I hope you can find what we talk about today helpful. If you would, I'd appreciate you clicking the like and giving any kind of a comment, maybe even sharing us with your friends. But make sure that you subscribe. That would be very helpful for this channel to keep going on and giving you some good information from social psychology, from the Word of God. So, anyhow, like I said, so many hours of work today already working on 2026 and what is the curriculum going to look like? How far am I going to develop that? What are the events going to be? Um, just as an insider, I will let you know that there's going to be a retreat. That's the Six Dimensions Summit. That is the weekend of Martin Luther King Jr. So I'm working on the venue and that kind of thing, and I will give you all the details in a little bit. Just stay tuned. In some way, keep checking back to find out what it is. Anyway, so working on all that stuff. And like many times when I am done doing that type of massive restructure or structuring for the first time, I'm going to go back to my own mission statement to make sure that it aligns so that I'm not dealing with what one of my long ago videos, the live streams, talked about was cognitive dissonance. I do not want cognitive dissonance. I want values based decision making going on that brings much higher life satisfaction and all that wonderful stuff. So, as you saw in the title, my life's mission statement is pretty dorky. I'm going to go ahead and read it for you so you can know just how dorky I am when I'm by myself. But a couple of years ago, I put this together, and it's basically a resume to remind myself, who am I? What tools do I have in my bucket that I can use? And what are my values? So here's my mission statement: to digest a multitude of information to précis. That is, to make the complex simple and accessible and deliver to growth minded individuals, that's you, in their context, to effectively empower and inspire them to define and develop their God given identity and excel in their passion and calling, taking into account external and internal influences inhibiting, prohibiting, or facilitating. Now, that mission statement ends up being basically what my book is about. You can see my book behind me over there, Going Beyond Around to It. Um, and this, it just talks a lot about like, who are you, first off? What is it that inhibits you? What are your hindrances? What are your distractions? What are the stones that people have dropped in your path about who you are? Did your great Aunt Mabel tell you you should be a doctor when you knew that that wasn't correct? Those kinds of things. Well, the first chapter ends up talking just a bit about who my mom was and the concept of procrastination and feeling like you are not going to be able to finish a job well, or that you're going to, you're just putting like sticking your neck out there for somebody to hurt you if you finish a job and then present it to the world. So that is not a good thing, but that is why we talk about getting around to it in the book. It's important to figure out where it is that you are in your life. Are you thriving in any of the dimensions of your life? And you can see right behind my head how I have the Six Dimensions poster hanging up. And that can be found easily on docprattministries.org if you wanted to see that. But the third chapter of the book talks about begin within and learning what self awareness is and why it matters. I'll just go ahead and read some of the sentences here. Just as my dad, Doc Pratt, believed that good medicine required understanding the whole patient, not just the symptoms, but the person carrying them, genuine personal growth demands we start with a comprehensive, compassionate assessment of who we are. This isn't about harsh self criticism or shallow self improvement tricks. It's about the kind of deep, gracious self knowledge that becomes the foundation for everything else. As you can see, understanding who you are and why you're here is foundational to everything else, all the way up to life satisfaction. Okay, so when we focus attention on ourselves, like I was talking about earlier, we automatically begin comparing who we are with who we believe we should be. This isn't vanity or narcissism. It's one of the most fundamental processes that separates us from other species and allows us to grow, change, and become more than we currently are. What a great idea. But it does take time and the intentional effort to look at ourselves and do some self evaluation. A couple of pages later, I talk about the three pillars of self knowledge. The first one is identity and core self concept. Your identity is your answer to the question, who am I? But it's more complex than you might think. Healthy identity formation involves integrating multiple dimensions of yourself into a coherent, stable sense of self. Much like I was talking about, I don't want my values to be one thing and then the work for 2026 that I'm getting ready to do to be a totally different thing. That would cause angst and all the bad things. So, not a good thing. Then, secondly, the second pillar is emotional intelligence and self regulation. Now, emotional intelligence is a term that's been thrown around a lot for a lot of years, and with pop psychology and everybody and their brother thinking that they should use all these terms without knowing what they are. I'm going to go ahead and define it so that you and I are talking about the same emotional intelligence. Okay. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and effectively manage emotions in yourself and others. And it has emerged as one of the most important predictors of life success. Think about that. The better you know your emotions, better you're going to be. I used to think feelings, ugh, but they are very important, I have learned. It may be even more important than traditional intelligence for workplace performance, relationship satisfaction, and overall well being professionally. Isn't that interesting? Self regulations, on the other part of that second pillar, is the ability to manage your emotions rather than being hijacked by them. We all know somebody who is just like a flash in the pan kind of a temper, where all of a sudden you don't know what happened, but somebody did something and they just went off on you. That is not a good thing. But self regulation does not mean suppressing feelings or pretending they don't exist. Instead, it means acknowledging emotions while choosing how to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. So, those are very important too, huh? The third pillar is strengths, talents, and calling. One of the most significant shifts in psychology over the past few decades has been towards strengths based approaches. Now think about that. If you go back to any of the old movies or whatever, if they talk about psychology, you're pretty much trying to diagnose what's wrong with that guy, right? Well, Martin Seligman, as he took over the American Psychological Association, I almost forgot what APA stood for, but when he took over it for the year that he was president, each president is supposed to come up with what they want to focus on that year, and his was positive psychology. His argument was, why do we keep focusing on what's wrong with people rather than what's right with people? And that's what we're talking about here with the strengths based approach to human development. Rather than focusing primarily on fixing weaknesses, people flourish when they identify and develop their natural talents and abilities. This is a great reason for you to know exactly who you are, who you're meant to be. Um, We need to take the time to figure out our values, which is one of the things that we do in this book, There are even a couple of pages that talk about the foundation of values-based learning and understanding the science of goal setting. Living according to your values doesn't just feel right morally or spiritually. It literally activates the brain's reward circuits, creating a neurobiological foundation for sustained motivation and well being. Maybe you heard that sustained motivation. That's great. If I am living according to my values, then that means it's going to be a whole lot easier for me to continue forward toward the goal that matches those values, right? All right. So, another thing over here on the next page, Locke and Latham established what's now called goal setting theory. And I'm not going to bother you with that, but the effectiveness of specific goal setting approaches depends significantly on what you're trying to accomplish and where you are in the learning process. So, back in chapter 2, we talk about is your life a dumpster fire, which we call desert, or are you doing really well, which is thriving? And how are you doing in those? All the different dimensions individually and then overall. And that helps you understand how to set your goals. How fast are you going to go on these goals? How detailed are they going to be? We want to set you up for um, anything but failure, right? And the process of setting meaningful goals that match your values naturally promotes strategic thinking. Instead of hoping things will change, you can begin developing specific approaches, identifying potential barriers, and creating contingency plans. We talk a lot about all this stuff. Goals that emerge, I'll even read these sentences. Goals that emerge from these intrinsic motivations, personal growth, meaningful relationships, and contributing to something larger than yourself, those tend to be more sustainable than goals driven primarily by external rewards like money, status, or approval. Pretty cool, huh? From a Christian perspective, which I am a Christian, this psychological truth beautifully supports what Scripture teaches us about calling and purpose. When our goals are rooted in love for God and service for others, intrinsic motivations at their highest level, we tap into sources of energy and persistence that external rewards alone cannot provide. The joy found in living according to God's design for us isn't just spiritual truth, also psychological reality. What a wonderful thing. So, I was challenging you, and even in the title of this video. Do you have a life's mission statement? Maybe you haven't spent the, hour or two that it took me to come up with my mission statement. Maybe you have. Maybe you already know what your values are and how you want to set your goals according to them and live your life carefully, intentionally according to your values and what you want to get out of this one chance that we have of life. If not, I would encourage you, of course, what author doesn't want to say, you can buy, whoop, over there, you can buy my book and read through it. You can get a hold of me at Amy at docprattministries.org, or just go to docprattministries.org and, fish around in there, see what kind of information you can find out. Make sure that you subscribe to not just this channel and like this video and comment if you would please, or share it with somebody. You can also sign up for the newsletter and find out what's going on, so you don't miss out on the retreat that's coming up, the Six Dimensions Summit. So anyway, God bless you very much. I hope that you take the time to learn a little bit more about yourself today and apply it. We all need you to be exactly who you are and the best version of yourself possible. Thanks very much. See you next time.